Good evening and welcome to the Courier-Journal's primary election coverage. I'm Kirby Adams and I'm joined here tonight by three of the Courier-Journal's political experts. To my right, to your left, Joe Girth, Morgan Watkins, and Joe Sanka. Thanks for being here tonight. I know you have been covering this all day long, so you've got a lot of great insight and hopefully you're caffeinated. So
Always.
Always, right. So right now the votes have not all been counted, but we are close enough that we want to sit down and talk to you a little bit about what's happening at this point and also how that will affect you moving forward. So Morgan, let's go ahead and start talking first about the race for mayor here in Louisville.
Sure. It hasn't officially been called yet, but it's looking like Craig Greenberg is going to win it. He's got, looks like right now, 42% of the vote with about 85% of the vote counted. Second place is Shamika Parrish-Wright with about 21%. So that's a huge gap for anybody to make up. So it's looking like Greenberg, who has generally been considered the front runner, far outraised everybody else in the mayoral race, both on the Republican and Democratic side, is going to walk away with it tonight.
So that's the Democratic side.
On the Republican side, also, the kind of expected front-runner, Jeffersontown Mayor Bill Deereff is in the lead with 78% of the vote, with about 47.5% of the vote counted. In second place is Chartrell Hall with about 11%. So, again, Deereff looking to be in good shape for the Republican primary, which means, barring any kind of insane vote dump later tonight, it's going to be Greenberg versus Deereff for the fall.
And so, Joe, give us a little idea of what that race may end up looking like.
You have to think that going into it, Greenberg's going to have a huge advantage because Jefferson County has traditionally been a Democratic stronghold, and it's only gotten more so with Matt Bevin on the Republican side and then Donald Trump on the Republican side. You've seen a hard push against that sort of Republicanism in Jefferson County. You've seen it in the numbers in the elections, the presidential election in 2020 and the governor's race in 2019. And so it's going to take a lot for Deereff to overcome whatever advantage he has. I'd say it's going to be tough to do. He's going to have to raise a lot of money because Greenberg's going to have a lot of money, and I don't see a huge chance in an upset there.
Do you see him running a lot on his experience as mayor from Jeffersontown, pushing that? Yes, that's what he will push over and over and over again. If he has the money to do it. I mean, he's got to have the money to be able to push it. If he doesn't have the money, then he's going to rely on yard signs like he did during this election. Okay.
So.
Yeah, well, yard signs, and you can only have so many of those, right? Yep. So let's move on now to the 3rd district and talk a bit about that.
So there, on the Democratic side, again, at this point, as far as I know, barring the last 2 minutes, nothing has been officially called, but State Senator Morgan McGarvey is in the lead over Representative Attica Scott, who are the only 2 Democrats. It looks like right now we're looking at about 66% for McGarvey versus 34% for Scott, with 87% of the votes in. McGarvey, like Greenberg, really strong on fundraising, outraised Scott by about 6 to 1. Racked up plenty of endorsements too, although she also got endorsements from progressive groups within and outside of Kentucky. But right now it's looking like it's going to be McGarvey, but it hasn't officially been declared that yet.
So again, it's follow the money.
Follow the money, exactly. It's not only did McGarvey have a huge amount of money in this race, there was also a political action committee that was being funded by his father and by the Brown family of Brown Foreman. That if you went to the Courier-Journal's website over the past 2 weeks and called up any story, chances are you saw well, actually, no, never mind. Strike that. That was a Greenberg ad that you saw. But there have been television ads, and McGarvey's been up with a lot of his own ads on television, but this PAC has been up with a lot of ads also. And so it's been, you can't turn on the television without seeing these ads, and that's why he's winning in a runaway.
And it also did not hurt that Representative John Yarmouth, who's retiring, which opened this seat up, went ahead and publicly endorsed McGarvey. People debate how much do endorsements matter, but I think it's fair to say that that one, for at least some voters,
Sure.
matters.
And in addition to that, I thought one of the best ads of the entire campaign was the ad in which State Representative Keturah Herron, an African-American woman, came out and endorsed Morgan McGarvey, which gave, that really hit Attica Scott where she hurts.
It was interesting, too. We talked about this a little bit before, but the fact that Attica Scott didn't have any TV ads.
No, nothing. And it's hard to win like that.
TV is expensive. I mean, McGarvey raised over $1.5 million, and Scott raised under $300,000 as of late April. $1.5 million is going to get you on TV and get you on TV a lot. Clearly, under $300,000, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's going to buy a few yard signs, and it's going to pay for your campaign, the employees that you have, and beyond that, there's not much left.
So, Joe Sanka, we haven't spoken to you yet, and I want to make sure we bring you into the conversation. Let's move over to Frankfurt and what's going on in the State House.
Yeah, so we have lots of primaries, especially on the Republican side, since they have almost just about every member in Frankfurt is a Republican. The results are still trickling in right now. There haven't been a lot of results in from Jefferson County. The biggest aspect of these Republican primaries that I'm looking at is you have about 8 or so candidates, challengers that are taking on Republican incumbents who are kind of in the Thomas Massey libertarian / liberty mode. And so they're trying to take on Republican incumbents. So far, it looks like at least 2 of those incumbents in Central Kentucky have survived that challenge. Representative Kim King, she was challenged by one of the people who petitioned to impeach Governor Beshear in 2021. Looks like she hung on to her race and is going to survive. There's another big race for state senate between Senator Donald Douglas and Andrew Cooper-Ryder. He was another one of the petitioners seeking to impeach Governor Beshear. Right now, we're still waiting on the Fayette County results to come in, but it looks Douglas has a slight lead right now. So it looks like he might survive that race depending on those results. And so far in Northern Kentucky, that's where a lot of these challengers are from. We've pretty much seen no results yet so far. So we're still waiting on those. On the Democratic side,
Wait a second, why would that be, do you suppose? It's just slower to...
Same reason why Jefferson County has been very slow, Fayette County has been slow. We're not really sure.
Yeah, we're not sure why. Okay, I didn't know if there was just some particular reason why, if that was always the case in that area or what. Okay.
And apparently, while we have been sitting here, the Democratic primary was called for McGarvey in Yarmouth's seat. So, some news for y'all.
Thank you. Thanks for keeping up on that. We appreciate that. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Joe, though. I was just curious why maybe the numbers were coming in more slowly. But so you were telling us about Northern Kentucky.
Yeah, Northern Kentucky, we're waiting on those. That's where most of those Liberty, Thomas Massey type of challengers are. Also on the Democratic side in Louisville, we're still waiting on results in a couple of primaries where incumbents are being challenged in House District 30. You have Representative Tom Birch, who's been there for almost the past 50 years representing Louisville. He's being challenged by Daniel Grossberg, who's loaned his campaign a large amount of money to be able to compete in terms of the campaign spending. Also in the West End in House District 43, you have Representative Pamela Stevenson, who's been there for one term. She's being taken on by Lavertus Bell, who is a leader in the Democratic Socialists of America in the Louisville chapter. So he's mounting a challenge criticizing her on the West End, on New West End TIF, which he's very critical of, and Stevenson voted for. So those results are probably in right now, and so we'll see who wins those.
Yeah. So what is your take on that? What's your analysis of what's going on there in Frankfurt? I mean, it's still a little. Sounds like it's a little early to tell.
It's far too early to tell because I'm really interested in seeing what happens in those Republican races where you've got these far right challengers who are taking on far right representatives and senators. it's going to tell us a lot about where Kentucky is going to be going over the next few
Right.
years, and if the more moderate forces in the Republican Party can start to claw back some of what they've lost.
So if the moderate party can claw back some of what they've lost, how will that change life in a sense for you and me?
It probably won't change the dynamics all that much because they're still going to be pushing through a lot of very Republican, very conservative legislation. But it just might hold down the cringe factor a little bit. You know,
Okay.
when you see what they've done, you think, oh, how's that going to play on national television, sort of thing. So.
We play a lot on national television in the state of Kentucky.
Well, and Joe's written about this. That something you could see is that certain legislation that's controversial even within the Republican caucuses in the legislature, the fate of that could change depending on who gets elected in not just these primaries, but kind of like the primaries to come. Medical marijuana is being one of them.
Sports betting.
Are we going to bring sports betting to
Right.
Kentucky? Those are things that the Republicans disagree on. So who you elect matters,
Sure.
on that front.
And that's how it trickles down and matters to the people of the state.
And I would say also further pandemic policy, tax policy. The Liberty wing of the party is extremely anti-tax, especially when it comes to gas tax. That's something that the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce has pushed for years and years to try to increase to help the road fund, and they are absolutely opposed to that. So if they gain more of the caucus, there would be less of a chance of a gas tax increase or any other type of tax increases going forward. But we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah. That makes me want to pop back to the race for mayor. As far as what we know at this point about what Greenberg versus Durff, what is important to them in their races, how will that play out for the people of Louisville?
Well, I mean, I think something that you'll definitely see them both talking about is public safety and policing and, violent crime in Louisville. That's something that you see Greenberg talking about a lot. He talks about a safer Louisville. So I think you can expect him to continue campaigning on that. And I think you'll see Durff, obviously needs to address that as well. And I think that you'll see, Durff, as you mentioned earlier, pointing out and emphasizing things that he has done as the mayor of a town already, because that is something that he has that Greenberg doesn't, is having served in public office before and having served as a mayor before.
Sure. The experience factor.
Correct, yeah.
And one place where he will push hard, Durff, that is on economic development. I mean, I found it interesting. I heard him several times during the campaign say that he is mayor of the largest or second largest or third largest, whatever largest industrial park. He's saying he is mayor of the industrial park. I don't know if it's a slip of the tongue or if he's meant to say that, but that's one thing he's going to be hit hard on.
Interesting. All right. So, Rand Paul, Charles Booker. Has that been called yet?
Yeah, that's done. That was like first thing that got called tonight were those races or those primaries. It's what was expected, and it's exactly what happened. Both of them easily walked off with the party's respective nominations, Republicans for Rand Paul and Democrat for Charles Booker. And that kind of establishes it makes it official. I think, both of them have sort of been operating, in their campaigns operating under the assumption that this was what it was going to be, but now it's official that the two of them will be going head to head in November. In Booker's case, it's a historic nomination. The Democratic Party in Kentucky has never nominated a black person before until tonight for either a Senate seat or for a statewide office in Kentucky, period. And I was at Charles Booker's campaign or election watch party tonight.
What was that like? Yeah.
People were pumped. It was at 1020 Craft Brewery. They had live music. They had poetry. They had, his mother gave like a really rousing, introduction for her son. People were pumped, screaming, really stoked. And he talked a lot, both in his speech to the crowd and then also afterwards when he was talking to reporters about just the historic nature of this why kind of take a moment to take that in, sort of a thing. And also, you know, at the same time, is saying, hey, I'm ready for what is an uphill battle in terms of beating Rand Paul in increasingly Republican Kentucky. But, you know, he's like, Rand Paul's already raised millions of dollars more than Booker has. But tonight, you know, Booker was like, hey, we can do this. I'm not worried. We're going to hit the pavement. We're going to, you know, have kind of a unify people across party lines, and we're going to do this and kind of, you know, saying we proved the doubters wrong tonight. We're going to prove them wrong in November. It's definitely going to be hard, though.
So it was definitely a feeling of jubilation.
Oh, yeah, no question. People were so excited. You know, people were, I had been to a couple of campaign events of his in 2020 when he was running for Senator Mitch McConnell's seat, and he lost the Democratic primary there, but narrowly he did a lot better than anyone expected. And people were really excited about him then, and it was clear tonight, like there's still that, for a lot of people, there's still that feeling of like being really inspired by his candidacy, being really excited to see someone who is black, someone who is unabashedly progressive. One thing's for sure is he will not be running a moderate kind of, you know, campaign in Kentucky. Like, he is going to run on progressive issues straight up.
It'd be interesting too to know what lessons he learned his last cycle around, and what he'll be taking forward as he pushes for this particular seat. Well, any thoughts on that?
I think she covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
I'm more interested right now in a couple of the other races,
Well, tell us.
like the Jefferson County Clerk's race. On the Democratic side, I was really interested to see what would happen there. Neville Blakemore spent a lot of money on that race.
$600,000.
Yes, which is just unheard of. It's
and $250,000 was his
his own
self-loan,
money.
his
Yeah.
own money. Yeah.
And it looks like he's trailing pretty severely behind Tina Ward Pugh, the former Louisville Metro Councilwoman and Louisville Alderwoman. Another one is the sheriff's race. I was thinking George Rodman might be able to challenge John Aubrey, but the challenge that Aubrey's getting right now is from Stephen Yancey, the son of Clarence Yancey, the longtime West End political activist. Aubrey's got about a 3,500 vote lead at this point, and bears watching the rest of the evening, I think.
So who gets to stay up for the rest of the evening to bring us all of this information online?
Not me.
Someone will.
Depending on how long the legislative seats take, we got a whole bunch of people back here working, waiting for them to call these races.
Yeah, you want them to move along up there in northern Kentucky. Yeah. So any last thoughts on what we've seen here tonight?
A lot, at least at the...
No big
money wins,
yes.
except if you're Neville Blakemore.
Yeah, except if you're Neville Blakemore, and you don't want to run on that. So it sounds like there weren't any big upsets. Nothing where we were very shocked at what happened.
Not so far. I was speaking with Secretary of State Michael Adams the other week, and he said, it's kind of a sleepy primary, at least at the congressional level. And I think tonight that was true in the sense that the people that we thought was going to win, all the incumbent House members have been looking in good shape. McGarvey pulled it out at the mayor level. Greenberg pulled it out. Yeah, kind of like the stuff that politicos were saying, well, this is what's going to happen with a 2% chance of an upset. It happened. Local level, though, a little different.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
I keep going back to these numbers in the mayor's race and seeing how Greenberg is just, really dominating the opposition here. And you go back to the money. You look at the ads that he had up, and the fact that that nobody other than David Nicholson was able to even mount a television campaign, and Nicholson's ad campaign was very weak. I mean, he had 300 points up in the last week of the election. That means the average person will see one of his ads 3 times in a week.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm guessing that a lot of people were seeing Greenberg ads 3 times in a day.
Yeah, and then online too. Every time I would go online to do my work, it would pop.
Yeah, in the McGarvey's PAC put in almost $1 million, and it was almost entirely digital streaming
Yeah.
in TV. So that's why you can't turn on a TV or watch anything streaming and not see ads by Greenberg and McGarvey.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. So now they need to keep moving forward. Do they have the money to do that, or will they need to go back to the coffers and raise more?
They'll reload.
They won't need as much,
Yeah.
but they'll
They'll reload.
yeah.
They will reload.
And they're already, I don't think any of them, McGarvey certainly hadn't spent it all down, so they're already starting with leaving this with some kind of nest egg, and I don't think there'll be any problem. At least they haven't shown any problems with raising money so far. I doubt that's going to change now.
I felt like you had something else you wanted to say.
Oh, one of the races I mentioned earlier, the AP has called it for Senator Donald Douglas. He was running against Andrew Gooprider. So that's basically all three impeachment petitioners against Bashir ran for office, and it looks like all three of them lost their primary. And the Gooprider one was the big challenge, and that's the one where there was an outside Republican group that put up $120,000 of TV ads in Lexington. And the Senate Republican caucus also threw in about $60,000 to help Douglas. So that's another area where money wins. They threw in a couple $100,000 to help him hold on to that seat, and it looks like they at least just barely did keep Douglas in the Senate.
All right. Well, thank you for all your expertise on this. I guess we'll have one more thing to say before we go.
The AP has now called the race for Craig Greenberg with 99% of the vote in. So
Okay.
It is official.
It's official then. All right. So I guess what I was going to say was I will see you all back here around the little tables, I guess, in how many months? In the fall.
6. 11
See
months.
you in November.
no one told me there'd be math involved.
Yeah, that's why we're journalists. All right, so we'll see you back here in November. But in the meantime, I know you've got more work to do. You probably have more work to do as well. So thank you so much for your expertise, and thank you for watching. Remember, you can find out all the information on today's primary elections at Courier-Journal.